What's up, guys? Welcome back to Kind of Funny Games Daily for Monday, August 16th, 2020. I'm Tim Geddes, and joining me is Laura, Kate, Dale. Laura, how are
Hello,
you?
thank you. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me. It's as someone that's been a fan of the show for a long time, it's nice to get to come and chat.
No, I'm so excited to have you. We were just talking a little bit before the show, just like, one of the upsides of this whole situation, this mess that we're in, is like at least we get to, get some people because you're over in London, right?
Yeah. So it's nice to have an excuse to be able to be on things that I probably couldn't physically get to.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very exciting to have you. For people that might not be aware of who you are, where might people know you from?
I do a bunch of stuff on the internet to do with video games. Probably the thing I'm best known for is I'm on a podcast called Podquisition, which is a video game podcast I do with Jim Sterling, have done for the last, I think, nearly 6 years. Other than that, I stream on Twitch Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. I have a series on YouTube called Accessibility, which is all about video game industry accessibility and representation. And I've written a bunch of books.
Yes,
I've
you
got a
did.
book. Yeah, I'll leave the one that you're involved in till last. I've got a book called Uncomfortable Labels, which is about being gay and trans and on the autism spectrum. I've got a book called Gender Euphoria, which is just a nice anthology of positive trans stories. I've got a book coming out on February 4th, 2021, called Things I Learned from Mario's Butt, which is a silly and serious book of video game character butt reviews with a bunch of art in it. It's got both Tim and Greg have graciously written words for it.
And I will spoil for everybody that I did write about Crash Bandicoot's butt. So
Oh,
it was
the
very
the
exciting stuff.
the piece of Crash Bandicoot butt artwork that is in that book is a wondrous thing.
I am so excited about this. Thank you for having us be a part of that. By the way, that's such a cool thing. I don't know that I've ever written something in a real book, so I'm going to count
Thank,
this as the number one time.
thank you for agreeing to be involved in such a ridiculous project. It's one of those things that, like, when I approached people to get involved, I was like, no one's going to say yes to this. Who's going to agree to write for a butts book? Apparently, the answer's everyone. Everyone wants a good excuse
Oh
to
yeah.
chat about
Yeah,
butts.
everyone loves them butts and video games. Put them together, it's going to be a good time. I think that I need to say that people here watching the show probably are familiar with you at the very least around the Switch's launch of me reporting on your just leaks and rumors and breaks for like months on end back in the
Yeah,
day.
there was a while where that was the thing I did, and I stopped doing that for a while because I'm gonna be honest, whether you're right or wrong, it is really exhausting to deal with leak stuff. Like, um, a big one I remember was I reported on Until Dawn Rush of Blood existing about a week before it got announced, and the day I talked about that, the developers announced in a Reddit AMA, no, that doesn't exist. There's no plans for any kind of Until Dawn content. And I had a week of just like people being real nasty, and then
Yeah.
it shows up. Like that's the. It's not fun, which is
And
why I
then you
haven't
don't
really
get you
done
don't
it
get
for a
the fun
while.
parts
But
of that. It's not like it shows
no,
up and
no,
everyone's like, "Oh, she was right."
yeah,
Like,
no one comes and goes. Oh, I'm very sorry, I said mean things to you. Turns out you were right. Everyone's
yeah.
just like, it goes. But
Well, I've always
yeah,
appreciated you. I always think that there's so much fun in the hype and in the wonder of the is it real? Is it not real? I enjoy it all. So thank you
I,
for everything that you've done. I'm sorry that the people are assholes.
that's all
And fuck
right.
you for being
I've
assholes.
I've always enjoyed that from the other side, which to have briefly had that be a thing I was involved in is like, yeah, it's still pretty special.
And we're going to talk a lot about it today because today's stories include Avengers leaks, Batman teases, Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer, and more. Because this is Kind of Funny Games Daily, each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/Kind of Funny Games. We run you through all the nerdy news you need to know about. If you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindoffunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or your favorite podcast service. Just search for Kind of Funny Games Daily and we'll be right there for you. If you want to get the show ad free, you can go to patreon.com/Kind of Funny Games. You also get the exclusive post show, which is very exciting stuff for everybody. Some housekeeping for you today. Kind of Funny Games is doing the first ever stream of Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. You can catch that at 1:30 Pacific time on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. So right after our in review. And then DC FanDome is this Saturday, and we're treating it like Greg Miller's personal E3. Greg and the Kind of Funny crew will be on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames all day long, reacting to the panels for Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, WB Montreal's game, the Snyder Cut, all the other DC movies. Anything you would expect us to be reacting to, we're going to be there reacting to it. Pretty exciting stuff. It starts at 10 a.m. PT. Be there. We'll be there all day. And thank you to our Patreon producers, Muhammad, and Blackjack. Today, we're brought to you by DoorDash, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with what is and forever will be the Roper Report. It's time for some news. We have 7 and a couple half stories today.
Baker's dozen.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very, very much. No, story number 1. WB Games Montreal teases Batman Arkham game. This comes from IGN's Joe Skrebels. It all started today with a tweet from WB Games and then some follow-up tweets and then people digging and finding source codes and all this stuff. Here is the story. WB Games Montreal is once again teasing its new project, long rumored to be a Batman game set around the Court of Owls storyline, and potentially called Gotham Knights. And it looks as though we'll see an announcement or reveal of some kind tomorrow on August 18th. Fans have followed a new tease to a website called redacted.com, where the E's are all are threes, which currently features the words, "We have been expecting you," and then the date, August 18th, followed by a 24-hour countdown timer that's set to end on the 18th. The initial tease that led here saw the Batman Arkham Origins developer link to a new Twitter account called Redacted, which has uploaded a short video that I think we're looking at right now, showing a computer interface with occasional background interference, seemingly showing 3 different crests or logos. Of the 3 emblems shown, one definitely features an owl, although it's not the same owl that we've seen in previous teases, while the others are far fainter, making it difficult to make out exactly what they're depicting. Source code for the Redacted website points to an extended teaser campaign taking place over the course of the week, perhaps ending in a video being unlocked to view on Friday, August 21st. So it doesn't seem like the 18th is going to be what we're waiting for. It's just kind of, we're going to get even more teases because this game hasn't been teased long enough. Entering the code successfully on this little thing that Kevin's looking at now gets you clues to return to the next day. So it just seems like a fun little viral marketing campaign. And another section mentions video in connection with day 4's entry, perhaps indicating that a trailer of some kind will be unlocked once the codes have been entered for each day. Laura, what do you take from this?
I mean, the whole 4 days to get a trailer thing seems about right, because that would put it at the end of the week, and that's just in time for all the stuff they're planning this week. I don't know a huge amount about the Court of Owls, but what I do know seems really interesting. It seems to be a lot of stories about like hundreds of years old secret societies, and that's very different from what any of the previous like Batman games we've had have really dealt with. They've all dealt with the sort of more contemporary modern villains, and I'm just excited for more Batman. And if the price of admission to that is I've got to deal with a few days of entering secret codes on a weird website, we waited like a year to find out what this game is. Like, I can manage waiting 4 more days.
We've waited actually even longer than that. So Jason Schreier tweets out, it's now been 329 days since WB Montreal first started teasing this game, which is hilarious. So that's not quite a year, but Imran Khan then tweets out, it's actually been 640 days since WB Montreal themselves started teasing it. It's only been 329 since WB's marketing team first started. This is from a November 2018 tweet from an associate producer. So it's like, this has been a very, very, very long running thing. The Court of Owls comic series. Are you into comics at all?
I am into comics. I've just never gotten around to the Court of Owls stuff, but I've always heard it's fantastic.
It's fantastic. One of my favorite Batman storylines, and Batman's one of my favorite comic books. So
conceptually, it seems great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would be amiss if I didn't call Barrett Courtney, who is one of our guys, who is the number 1 Arkham fan I've ever known. So I'm going to call him right now, real quick, to get his thoughts on this, because he's been brokenhearted at every single games event for the last year and a half after this tease, expecting it to be there, being sure it's going to be at this one.
That's the problem when they tease something like that so early, is that every time it gets teased, it's like every event's going to be the one.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I see Barrett's in the chat right now, so.
Yo, what's up?
Boss baby yourself. How you doing?
Dude, Tim, I woke up kind of in a weird mood. And then I go to my phone, I check Twitter, and holy shit, what a good day. What a good way to start a Monday. You know what I'm saying, Tim?
I know what you're saying.
And I get the frustrations. I get the Jason Schreiers and the Imrans who are like, oh, it's been so long since they first started teasing. You know what? Whatever. We're finally fucking here, dude. We're finally fucking here. We're finally gonna get the logos that, like, they put out that image of, like, the two logos that they had shown together, and then there was like 4 other circles that still needed to be filled in, and then 4 circles in the middle that needed to be filled in. We're totally gonna get the 4 outer circles this week. The first one being the Court of Owls. I'm excited to see what the other ones are, and my prediction is that we get the 4 inner logos are going to be logos of Bat Family characters that we can play as, and that'll be revealed on Saturday with the WB Montreal panel thing on Saturday for DC Fandom. I am so fucking stoked. We're finally here. Holy shit, I feel so good.
I love it. That's awesome. And you're going to have you, of course, on the reveal for this. So.
Oh, absolutely. Will maybe shirtless Batman make an appearance?
Oh,
I don't
my
fucking
God,
know.
let's go.
No promises can be made, but who knows?
I love
Who
it. I
knows?
love it. All right. Well, thanks, Barrett.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
Did anyone know what the hell he was talking about with circles and stuff? I think he's losing it, man. I think it's been too long.
But anyways, we're not gonna have to wait too much longer to find out all that stuff. I like what he was just saying though about the 4 playable characters. I buy it.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense, certainly. I think definitely, like, we're gearing up for probably teaser reveal on Friday and then full reveal on Saturday, and I mean, can't complain about that. As he said, finally we're getting something.
Yeah. I do wonder, knowing that Suicide Squad's going to be more of a games as a service style, Avengers style game, if there's multiplayer in this, is it multiplayer or is it just 4 playable characters in a single player campaign? Maybe there's a co-op, or I don't know.
I hope it's just 4 playable characters in a single player campaign, and I know we've got stuff about this later, but like, I don't want every game to be a multiplayer games as a service. I enjoy a good single player adventure sometimes.
As do I.
Yeah.
Well,
particularly
we're not
with something like Batman, where like the previous ones were so good single player.
Exactly. Well, we're not going to get that anytime soon with the Avengers. Moving on to the second story here. There's been a massive Avengers data mine leak. This is from subreddit user 6+4=52 on the Marvel's Avengers subreddit. 15 unannounced characters have reportedly been data mined from the Marvel's Avengers beta. And before we even get into it, I got to say, I'm pretty excited about this list. Like, this game, you know, I'm higher on it than I ever thought I would have been after playing it. But I'm still not where I wish I was. You're just talking about with the Batman games. Like, I wish this was just a single player Avengers game, but hey, it's not. We're getting this online multiplayer thing.
From what I've played of it, like, the single player linear, very cinematic stuff is definitely the stuff I've enjoyed most. But like, this list is exciting for the same reason that I was really excited to find out that Ms. Marvel was going to be essentially the main character of the story, which is, yeah, give some love to some of these great characters that haven't been big enough to be MCU staples yet. Like, those are the games that are the people coming up on this list that I'm excited about.
Totally. And before I even read the list, I want to point out that we're in a very interesting place with Marvel right now when it comes to licensing their characters out, both for movies, for TV stuff, but mainly for video games is what I'm talking about. Because what we've seen in the last, 5-6 years have been some pretty interesting and not great decisions made on the licensing front of Marvel versus Capcom Infinite, for example, where it was very clear that Marvel had a heavy hand in what characters are chosen and not chosen. Like, having no X-Men in that game is just insane.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the thing, is there's definitely been a while where Marvel has only been interested in, can we use it to market the MCU? Otherwise, we don't really care. Or like,
and
we don't want to market it if it's one of the properties that, like, sure, we can put the X-Men in a game, but someone else owns the films to that, so why would we?
Totally. And that's, I think, where we're really getting hit with X-Men and Fantastic Four in particular. But now that Kevin Feige's not just above Marvel Studios, but he's also kind of above Marvel as a whole, I think we're going to start seeing a lot more synergy in a way that doesn't feel as like things are being excluded, but more as like a well-rounded thing to get people more familiar with these smaller characters or different characters. Smaller is not even the right term, but like characters that we might not be used to seeing constantly. And I mean, like with MCU, it's like we can say that, oh, the MCU is only focusing on the same things. The MCU introduced the world to Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's like they're doing great stuff too. But so looking at the list here, we got Ant-Man, the Wasp, Vision, Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Falcon, Marvel, Mockingbird, Quake, Winter Soldier, Scarlet Witch, Captain Marvel, Kate Bishop, She-Hulk, and War Machine. Pretty great list.
Yeah, definitely. There's a few really good ones on there. Like I am really excited that Kate Bishop is on there because clearly the better Hawkeye. More interesting character by a long shot. I'm like, Kate Bishop does not get enough love, and I'm very excited to see that, like, yeah, get her in there.
Totally. And, you know, when we look at the future of the MCU now, I think that this kind of does show a lot of the synergy stuff here. And hold on, Greg Miller's saying some stuff live in the chat. Oh, there we go. I'll do that. Yeah, Greg Miller is literally live in the Kind of Funny Games Daily doc writing something, and I was like, what is this message? Tomorrow on We Have Cool Friends right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames after Games Daily, Greg Miller is going to be interviewing Sandra Sad and Troy Baker, who are Miss Marvel and Bruce Banner in Avengers. So very cool stuff. Miss Marvel getting even more love from us here at Kind of Funny Games. So that's very cool. Go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames if you want to leave your questions, or no /kindoffunny. No games. Patreon.com/kindoffunny to write your questions in. Anyways, back to it. Kate Bishop, super exciting stuff. I think that looking at this list, a lot of these kind of line up with what we know the future of MCU to look like, with the TV shows and stuff, with She-Hulk and things like that are cool. But then we see things like Marvel, where it's like, that's interesting. Like that killed him, you know?
Yeah, I want to see some. I still want to see some real out of left field picks at some point. Like I want to see stuff like Squirrel Girl get in. Like that's the stuff I'm hoping for. Go for the ones that have no obvious fighting mechanics and be like, I want to see them.
Yeah, let's make them fun. But I think I'm most impressed with how many characters are here. We know the game's launching with 6, and then we know Spider-Man's exclusive to PlayStation. We know that there was the couple already confirmed DLC coming, like with Hawkeye and them. But looking at this, it's like, wow, they're planning on supporting this game for a very long time, and hopefully they can. What you were talking about, the more cinematic beats. I hope that they can kind of make worthwhile storylines for these characters that keeps me coming back forever to play this game, like months at a time, like just for, you know, a couple hours to get through the campaign. I don't know.
Yeah, my big question with this list of like 15 is how long do we think they're gonna spread those out for? How regularly are we going to be getting these? Because they've got enough here that they don't have to be too spread out.
That's true. I mean, I imagine how nice would it be if they could have one character a month, right?
Yeah, that was my first thought, and I was like, that's over a year of like good characters they can be dropping.
And you know,
they definitely seem like they want this to be more than a year's worth of stuff. Like they've got a long roadmap on this.
Yeah. So okay, this list is only unannounced, so it doesn't include Hawkeye. So when you add Hawkeye to it, there's 16 characters. Like it's pretty crazy. Like that can add up pretty quickly. And also another thing from this leaked thing is that the Ant-Man was labeled as Ant-Man (2). So we know that Hank Pym is involved in the Avengers games, but maybe this is Scott Lang is actually going to be the playable one.
Yeah.
So.
The other thing that was interesting I saw on this was that Peter Parker shows up on this list for PC, which I assume definitely not playable in any way, but I do wonder, will Peter Parker show up in a non-playable form in the narrative and just not be Spider-Man or something? Like,
interesting.
It's probably just a holdover of the same code of some sort, but I wonder, I quietly hope.
Wait, but hold on. Are you talking about just in the PlayStation version or also showing up in the other versions? Because that could get complicated.
That could get complicated. Because that's the thing, is Spider-Man being only in the PlayStation version probably means that they won't be in story content, because otherwise the story is going to be different across platforms, but who knows?
Totally. Another important thing to mention about this is it doesn't have X-Men, and I don't think that that's necessarily a huge surprise. I mean, I guess you have Scarlet Witch, but she's at this point kind of transferred over. But
Yeah.
like no Wolverine, and it's like there's a couple X-Men that have been notable Avengers at some point. So
Well, it wouldn't be unimaginable to see them turn up as DLC, because we've had like Marvel Ultimate 3 had
mhm.
X-Men added in after launch as DLC, and with the stuff that's been evolving between Marvel and Fox about the X-Men rights, yeah, maybe it's just taking some time to get the ball rolling, and maybe they'll show up eventually.
Interesting. Yeah. Very exciting stuff. Moving into this is a 0.5 story because it's more character leaks, but this one a little less important, but it's important to me. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remake has a character leak. This is from another subreddit user, Derek420. Kev, can you bring up this image, please?
I'm on it.
Great image.
Thank you. The likeness of Officer Dick, which is the secret character from the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games that's been in all of the OG ones. That's just a police officer. It is now Jack Black. So in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remake, you'll be able to play as Jack Black. And this isn't too surprising. He's been a big fan of the Tony Hawk games for a long time. And the reveal of 1 and 2 Remake was on Jeff Keighley's Game Award or Summer Game Fest streams. But Jablinski Games, which is Jack Black's YouTube channel, that same day had a whole bunch of interviews up with the original cast of the first game and the first ever Let's Play of the game. Thanks, Kevin. So cool stuff. I've been playing this demo all weekend. Have you got your hands on it yet?
I've not gotten my hands on it yet, but everyone I know who has been very into it, so I'm excited to finally carve some time out and give it a look.
It's so good. It feels perfect. Like literally, it's a dream to me where I'm just like playing this game and I'm like, they actually nailed it. And I never thought that I'd play a game that feels like Tony Hawk again. And the muscle memory is just all there.
Yeah. After the last couple of Tony Hawks, I'm so happy to hear that because they've not been good for a while.
They've been horrible for a while. So this is very exciting stuff. Anyways, moving on to the next story. Ghost of Tsushima is getting a free online co-op later this year. This comes from Zack Zwiezen at Kotaku. Today, Sucker Punch announced Ghost of Tsushima Legends, a brand new co-op experience coming to Ghost of Tsushima for free. This new mode will let up to 4 folks play together in a story separate from the original game, featuring new enemies and characters based on Japanese mythology. Darren Bridges, the senior game designer at Sucker Punch, explained in a post on the official PlayStation blog how players will choose from different classes and play with a group of 2 to 4 in missions built exclusively for co-op. Depending on how many players you have, you'll get access to different missions. If it's just you and a friend, then you can try out a series of co-op story missions featuring a lot of combat. If you and 3 friends are playing together, you can play wave-based survival missions. A 4-player raid is also being added shortly after Legends is released. It will be released later this year for free as part of an update for Ghost, and it doesn't feature Jin or his companions, but instead focuses on 4 warriors who've been built up as legends and stories told by the people of Tsushima. What? Where did this come from?
I would not have called it because this game is so laser focused on one-on-one combat. I would never have seen this coming.
Yeah, it's. I mean, not only did I not see this coming, I didn't see it coming this soon, let alone this announcement. Right? Like the game, I guess it's hot off being the #1 selling game in July, so it's like people are interested in this game way more than I think a lot of people expected. I know that we look at PlayStation's first party lineup now as kind of like hit parade, just one after the other, but it's great to see Sucker Punch get their due here with this, and for it to be resonating with people. I know one of my best friends, Curran, who I always talk about in the show, is not really a hardcore gamer. Like he plays games and he's interested, but he's more of a Call of Duty Warzone guy than anything. But it's transcended to a point that Sony's first party games are mainstream to him and that group. And he platinumed Ghost of Tsushima. Like, that's crazy to me. And he only bought it because he played Last of Us 2 and loved it so much that he's like, I trust Sony Studios. And I'm like, that's crazy.
Sony have just been on an incredibly consistent run of games recently. Like, I think at this point, I would put them in a similar camp to Nintendo with their first party software, where you can guarantee a baseline level of quality, and they very rarely miss the mark.
Yeah, it's really unbelievable.
Yeah, this last probably 3 or 4 years, they have. I can't think of a miss they've had except for maybe Days Gone.
And even that Days Gone is, people seem to love it. Like the at least the audience seems to enough people seem to love it.
It wasn't for me, but a lot of people still loved it, and I can't deny it was a well-made game still.
Yeah. So going into this news story though, like it's surprising that this is happening, but also when we compare it to Last of Us 2 that came out in June, we knew Last of Us 1 had, its multiplayer mode, and they announced that the multiple factions was going to come later for Last of Us, and it seems like it's actually going to be like a separate experience, separate game or whatever, which makes sense. This to me is interesting that in such a similar time frame, they're putting out this multiplayer for free as part of this game this year. Like it's weird seeing them kind of deploy different strategies for the multiplayer update for giant titles.
Yeah, it is really interesting. I wonder how much of the timing was based on try and hit just when people have started playing the single player, and it's like we don't want to delay the game to get this multiplayer out, but if we can just hit when everyone's finishing it and go, look, there's a reason to keep a hold of your copy. It might not be for a few months, but don't trade it in yet. Like that's the kind of content that's going to get someone to keep their copy of the game. I feel like they've timed it well. This is about when people are finishing playing.
Yeah, totally. And especially with the PS5 coming out, like that's another great reason to keep your PS4 games and keep the longevity going there. Ayub from Ottawa writes in and says, so Sucker Punch just announced Ghost of Tsushima Legends, and I got to ask, was anyone expecting this? I thought Nate Fox confirmed on the spoiler cast you guys did that Sucker Punch had no plans for post-release content like they had done with Second Son with First Light or Infamous 2 with Festival of Blood. I'm not complaining, though. Ghost is tied with Doom as my game of the year so far, but a 2 to 4 player co-op experience was the last thing I was expecting. I guess my question is this what you wanted out of a potential post-release experience from Ghost? If not, then what would you have preferred? And do you believe this is something that Sucker Punch may expand upon with future updates past the raids experience coming later this fall? Thanks for the hard work during the wacky times.
I mean, just before we get to the question bit, the comment saying I thought they said they had no plans for post-release content. I mean, that's what any developer will say until they've announced their post-release content. Like that's not necessarily unexpected, but yeah, I'm not opposed to this. It's not what I would have expected, but I think the thing that has me excited for this is the fact that they have explicitly said it's not just putting co-op into the main experience, it's something crafted specifically for co-op, and that they're tailoring the experience based on the number of people you have. That's what has me confident. It seems like they've thought through the experience and it's not just going to be tacked on, which is always a good sign.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I didn't see this coming at all. And I totally, just because of timing and stuff, missed out on Ghost. Kevin, I know you absolutely love this game. What does this news do for you?
It very much excites me. It's not what I expected, but like I trust them, and what they're saying about like these 4 warriors that we've heard stories about, it's very clear. I think it's pretty clear who the warriors are. So I think that's really cool, and I don't know. I'm really, really stoked. I think that like if I get an opportunity to sit down with Greg and play it, Blessing also is really into it. We can all play together. Like that seems really cool, and like I wasn't done with the game because I still have probably another 15 hours with the way I play left of it. This is I think really exciting. Nate lied to me though. He lied straight to my face, and I hate him.
So to answer Ayub's question here, though, Kev, like obviously none of us saw this coming, but would you have preferred a single player traditional DLC?
I don't think so, just because we've gotten so much of that already with the game. Like, there's so many little side things that you can do that, like, feel like a single-player experience, where it's like, I've gotten hours and hours of that kind of gameplay. So I just think that, like, something new that they've thought about is going to be interesting, you know?
How do you think that because I agree with you both that I think that everything they're saying here about it scaling from the 2 to 4 players, like that's the type of attention to detail that is often missed from this type of thing. Yeah. So that's cool. Do you think that the gameplay of Ghost can translate to these raid-like experiences?
So there are a lot of missions where you're going with someone that is like an archer, and the archer's off in the distance shooting people down while you're fighting people, or you're both, you know, doing archery. I think that can translate well, where you can have different play styles and options on how you want to take it. So perhaps it's 2 samurai running around taking a camp, or it's you know a samurai and an arrow dude up in the hills being your support. I think both those are cool, and I hope that the story is fun.
Cool. There we go.
The only other thing I wanted to add on this is I think they've not specified the timing of when this is coming out, have they?
Let me look here.
I don't think. Because what I'm thinking about is this could be really good for the PS5 launch, particularly like if they, as the question asks, continue doing stuff after this raid expansion. It could be really nice for them to have a recently released, very popular game that is getting multiplayer content about the time that the PS5 is coming out.
Totally. So the PlayStation blog headline itself says Ghost of Tsushima Legends coming to PS4 fall 2020. So we do know that, but you're
I
right.
would be surprised if that fall timing means we also. It's also something you could be playing on your PS5.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that they would be crazy to not have that. I think that's going to be a big part of the marketing around the new hardware's launching of, hey, we have so many amazing games coming out at the end of this generation that are going to be better on this next system. And I think that that's it's exciting to me, you know, with like Cyberpunk coming out obviously on both systems, but then to have things like Miles Morales, which obviously we're going to be able to play on PS5, but then with what would have been Halo Infinite on Xbox, it's exciting to me that we could play these games in other places, but buying this new system is going to give me something that I'm getting a new thing out of it. Because like looking back at the old generations, there was always that thing where it's like, okay, we got the PS4, but the late PS3 games are coming out, and I'm more excited to play through those than I am to play the new PS4 games, you know?
And that's why new multiplayer content is so exciting, is because that's perfectly poised to be like, remember that old, like really good end of the generation game? Come back to it on the new system.
Totally. So it's exciting stuff. Moving on to some more exciting stuff. Sony is working on a next generation VR headset, but it might not be PSVR. Just comes from Joe Skrebels at IGN. Sony is developing a next generation VR headset, but it may well not be related to PSVR. A job listing spotted by Upload VR explains that Sony is hiring a team to create a next generation VR head mounted display. However, this device is being developed with a view to 5 years from now. And the listing has been posted by the core Sony Corporation rather than Sony Interactive Entertainment, which created the original PSVR headset. While a PSVR 2 has yet to be confirmed, we've seen Sony working on touch-sensitive controllers, and we know PS5 will continue to support the original PSVR, so it seems likely that PlayStation will continue its association with VR. However, it's entirely possible that the core Sony Corp is working on VR to different ends alongside SIE's work on PSVR, and the 5-year timeline for this particular headset seems to point to a next-gen for VR itself rather than console gaming.
I was looking at this story, and I think there's like maybe 3 ways that this could ultimately go. The fact that it's Sony in general, not Sony Interactive Entertainment working on it, could be indicative that it's not a gaming-focused VR headset. We might be looking at Sony as an entertainment company going like, look, we have TVs. What other kind of displays could we be putting things on? Secondly, that 5-year time span, maybe they're looking at what comes after the PS5 and like, what could we be doing with VR 5 years from now, gaming wise? And I guess the third option would be maybe they're looking at gaming VR not specifically for PlayStation. Like maybe it's going to be a big enough market by 5 years from now that they want to be in the VR space generally for gaming. I don't know which of those I think is the case, but there's a few ways this could be going.
Totally. I'm sure that Greg and Blessing are going to talk about this on PS I Love You, and we'll give a lot deeper insights than what I have to this. But just looking at with how PlayStation's handled PSVR, I feel like I totally was wrong about my assumptions 5 years ago, looking at where they'd be now. Which is weird, where it's not nearly the major success that we thought VR as a whole was going to be. But PlayStation VR in particular, they're still committed to it in a way that they're still doing state of plays that focus on VR titles. And like Iron Man VR just came out. Like I would argue that is probably the highest profile PlayStation VR exclusive title that they've had thus far. And that's, you know, years into this thing's life.
Yeah, as someone that really loves VR, I still think that PlayStation VR is the sweet spot for price and quality when it comes to entry level VR. It really gets the balance of feeling like a decently powerful piece of kit that is affordable to anyone who's already got a PlayStation 4. And I love that it's being supported. It is a wonderful piece of kit, and you can look around the rest of the VR space, and there's stuff that's technically more impressive. Like the Oculus Quest is wonderful, being able to just do VR without having to be
The
cabled
Quest
up and
is
stuff. But
that's the one
yeah,
I've tried so many
yeah,
different VRs, and I've tried the Rift and stuff. Or not what
yeah.
Kev, what was the nice one we did? I've tried a whole bunch of them, but including the super high quality ones, and
The
that's
Vive
Yeah.
Pro
yes,
wireless
exactly.
version.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. But the
Yeah.
Quest just putting on your head, just working,
God,
that to me
gosh,
is
yeah.
like this. If Sony can come up with that type of thing and
On-
market it in a way
That's
to a broader audience, that could be a
yeah.
huge hit.
That's the big thing I'm waiting for is when it gets cheap enough that they can release a PSVR revision that has wireless support built into it. Also, there's obviously the Move controllers. Officially make more of them so they're easier to get. It's really hard to get Move controllers still.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Uh,
But yeah, this is interesting. I think that the 5-year time thing, like
yeah.
this points to evidence that this project might never even see the light of day. Who knows what it's
It,
going to be? I think it is just kind of prepping for a potential future.
yeah.
But again, maybe 5 years from now, I'll be looking back and saying that present me now is being an idiot too. But
Yeah, I mean, if you look at where VR's at now, 5 years from now, if you can get the price down a bit further, it's getting there.
yeah, totally. I just wonder if it's going to be worth the investment, if people are going to continue to keep pushing, or if we're just going to hit a point that it's like, this is what VR games can be, and that's cool and that's fine, but it's never really going to push to be this
I
mainstream way that people play games.
I hope it one day is a mainstream thing because I love the idea of the tech. I love VR conceptually, even if it's not always where it needs to be.
Yeah, because when it works, it's pretty
Yeah.
mind-blowing.
Oh gosh,
Um,
yeah. I watched a video of like the International Space Station, and it was a moving thing. It's wonderful.
Moving on to the next story, to some Nintendo stuff. Nintendo Indie World Showcase announced for tomorrow. The next Indie World Showcase is headed your way. Tune in Tuesday, August 18th at 9 a.m. Pacific for roughly 20 minutes of information on indie games coming to Nintendo Switch. Where's your hype level for this?
I mean, I'm excited. I always enjoy indie directs from Nintendo because like it's the main thing I play indie games on at this point. I don't like playing them anywhere that's not a handheld. So I'm really excited for it. I know that that's not the general internet. 'Cause the general internet's doing its thing where it's very upset that this isn't a main direct as they've been doing for a while.
Yeah, which is upsetting that they haven't
Yeah.
done one, but
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is not taking the place of a Nintendo
Oh,
Direct. This exists as its
exactly.
own thing. I always love that
Yeah,
Nintendo does put so much focus on its indies because you're right, the
yeah.
Switch is such a great home to them. But it's always hard for me to get excited about these showcases, just in the sense of like we're not going to do a live reaction to this, I don't think,
Yeah.
because it's pretty much what it's going to be is us looking at like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, this looks
Yeah.
cool. Hey, that looks
Well,
cool.
that's it. It'll be this looks cool until they do their one thing like Cadence of Hyrule at the end, and you go, oh, that's the exciting thing.
Yeah, and hopefully we get that. Like I think that
Yeah.
that wasn't necessarily my jam, but I love the idea of Nintendo kind of loaning out its IP to these small super talented developers that have wacky out there ideas.
Yeah. And I think the fact that that one was so well received is a good sign that maybe we'll get more of that in future.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Totally.
these indie directs, I'm always hopeful. They always have interesting looking stuff that wasn't on my radar before. But it's not until I'm watching them that I know why I should care about them. It's not like a main
Absolutely.
direct where I go, I know where to set my excitement levels.
Exactly. And I think with this, it's like, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I don't think there's ever been a bad Indie World Showcase
Oh,
or
no,
whenever they do. There's always at least one or two games that end up coming out and being major hits and like really resonating with people. So that's what's
I'm all
most exciting to me about
yeah,
this.
I'm always glad I watched them. There's always something new to put on my radar after I've seen one. So like, I'll check it out.
Yeah. And then another half story here, because this is kind of related to this. Sports Story has
Yeah.
been delayed. This comes from Tom Marks at IGN. Sports Story has been delayed from its mid 2020 release with no new release window announced. Developer Sidebar Games explained on Twitter that the game has become rather ambitious and we're excited about how it could turn out, but the price is currently being paid as we try to make our plans into reality. Then there's a trailer explaining the game's delay that teases some of the features the game's still working on, including a squid thing racing, a golf pinball machine, a secret hotel level, playing football with a dog, vampires, pirates, an evil corporation, and regal exile. Cool. I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of those things where Golf Story was beloved by so many people.
Mm.
Blessing loves it, cannot wait for
I
this,
love
so I'm
it
sure
too.
he's bummed. Yeah.
I was a big fan of it, and I'm glad that they said this up front, because otherwise, like, considering they'd been saying this was going to come out this summer, if they'd announced this Indie Direct, my first thought would have been, okay, this is the surprise announcement at the end of the Indie Direct.
Totally.
It's out today. That's where I'd have
Absolutely.
set my expectations, and thank you for setting that properly, Nintendo.
Yeah, the industry is just in such a weird place this summer or this
Yeah.
year that I think that, this year was not the best showing of what this all could be. But I do
Yeah.
think there's going to be a lot of learnings going forward about transparency and about, kind of making sure that you're not fumbling the message of setting people's expectations where they should be, or
Yeah.
more so where they could be. Where it's like, I understand, like, you don't
Yeah.
want to say, here's exactly what we're doing, but sometimes you do.
No, but-
But sometimes
Yeah.
you don't. And sometimes you want to give people like the thing of like, hey, this one's worth getting excited for. And it's hard to tell someone that without them running wild with expectations
Yeah.
of what things could be. But you're right here where it's like, Sports Story was the first thing to come to my mind with the
Yeah.
indie world. I'm like, oh, we're finally at least going to get an update on that. Now I'm like, I have no idea what they're going to show tomorrow at all.
That's it. Just be honest with your audience and set expectations, and everything's going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely been a learning curve for a lot of companies. Like, I think of Microsoft with their Series X gameplay stream that was largely not gameplay of any sort. Like,
Mm-hmm.
companies are still working out where that line is a bit.
Yeah, totally. I really wish that I could do a time machine, jump to the future, see if we're over this corona stuff, and then figure out what game developers have been doing. Because it's like I wonder what these conferences, these announcements look like even next year. Like, I'm sure that there's going to be so many learnings and so many things that, kind of the foundation's began here, but I really hope that that they really tighten some things up.
It'll be interesting to see what this year becomes when people can get back in a room and work properly based on what they've learned.
Yeah, we'll see. Then story number 6 here. Zelda Skyward Sword listing found online by Wario64. A listing for a Nintendo Switch port of Skyward Sword has been found online. Wario64 tweeted the listing found on Amazon UK before being taken down. It now leads to an error page, but the URL still includes Legend Zelda Skyward Sword Switch. What do you think?
I know this isn't a popular opinion, but Skyward Sword might be my very favorite Zelda game. I was lucky enough to have zero issues with the motion controls. They always worked perfectly for me, which I think is a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I love the story presentation in it. I love the dungeon design. It is a wonderful game that a lot of people swore off of it because they had poor experiences with the motion controls, and I'm like, I would love to see a version of that game that doesn't have those technical hiccups that people could get behind. I will say I'm really curious what they would do for handheld play, because obviously no motion controls in handheld play. Would you do something like Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, hold down a button and move an analog stick to swing your sword? Would it be touch controls like something like Okami HD? Like, that's what I'm curious about is, do we keep the motion controls? And if you do, what do you do for handheld play?
Yeah, I mean those are really good questions. It's crazy that you think it's your favorite Zelda. Like that's I don't think I've ever met someone that's true.
I go completely two directions. It's either Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild, and I know that they're such different games.
So yeah,
but
literally you
I love
cannot
them
get
both
much
so
more
much.
different in the
Yeah.
Zelda front. I fall in the camp that Skyward Sword isn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be,
Oh,
but
God,
I
no.
also think that there's enough padding in it that it reminds me a lot of Twilight Princess, where there's enough in the
I
beginning
get that.
that I'm like, oh, there's a lot of good game here, but it's taking too long to get to that part.
It's
But yeah,
certainly not a perfect game, but like the things it does right, I enjoy so much.
totally. But yeah, the idea of motion controls or what they'll do on the Switch is very interesting. And I think that when we saw, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess get ported to the Wii U, there's a reason Skyward Sword wasn't.
Yeah.
And I think that one of those was probably just like you could already play the Wii version on the with the Wii U, with the Wii mode and all that stuff. But also I think it's because they knew that there would be so much extra work that had to be put into making it playable. And that's why I'm a little bit trepidatious about this, where if
Yeah.
we let me read a question first. Billy the Door writes in and says, "Hello, Laura. Great to see you on the show. I backed your butt book a while ago, and I'm looking forward to it. My question is for the Nintendo Duo. With the Zelda Skyward Sword rumors, what are the chances of any other Zelda games coming to the Switch? It's such a shame that the Wii U and 3DS have a ton of Zelda games playable, and the Switch only has a handful available."
I would love to see more of those games on Switch. Obviously, it makes no sense not to port the Wii U Twilight Princess HD and Wind Waker HD because those could probably just be dumped over and be fine. Um, I loved the Grezzo ports of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask on 3DS. I would love to see just that level of treatment to get a Switch port. I'd love that. That'd be wonderful, obviously. Yeah, the Zelda series. I've never not enjoyed a Zelda game, so yeah, sure, give me all of them on Switch.
Totally. I'm shocked that we haven't seen Wind Waker and
Yeah,
Twilight Princess just kind of thrown over to it, especially with how Wii U port happy the Switch has
yeah,
been to major success. Like,
yeah.
especially with I mean, I get we had Link's Awakening last year, Breath of the Wild in
Mm,
2017. It's not like there's been a overrunning of Zelda games on the Switch
yeah.
so far. Like, they
And
definitely could have put those out.
even if it was just the Wii U ones got ported, that would be an instant win for any Nintendo Direct you put those in. People would lose
Oh yeah,
themselves over it.
absolutely, totally. And then like 'cause
Yeah,
those are beloved games, and especially
yeah.
Wind Waker, like put that on the Switch. Like I feel like that game belongs on the Switch. People would
Oh gosh,
love
yeah,
that. But it's
yeah.
like looking at
It's
this. Go for it.
oh yeah, it's such a good. The sprawling nature of it would go so nice on the Switch.
Totally. So I'm just
Mm,
more interested that it seems like we're getting this URL for something that may or may not
mm,
actually exist. But for Skyward Sword before those games, like I would feel that Skyward Sword is the last on the list of
I
potential things coming to Switch. I would predict
yeah,
that the Wii U ports would come over first. I would
yeah,
predict even that you're talking about the Grezzo 3DS games. I
yeah.
don't think that we'd see those. Like that seems like maybe a bit too much work. I would expect a Ocarina remake before I'd expect
I,
Skyward Sword
yeah.
port.
I I I don't disagree with you. The only thing that makes me think maybe Skyward Sword could be on the table is they put so much work into it. It's clearly such a beloved thing. Like Nintendo seems to love that game, and it was not received well. And I can see there being the thought of, let's give it another lease at life, and maybe this is the time people will love it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hope that it's
Yeah,
true. And we'll
yeah,
see what's up. But yeah, it does suck that there are so many games that kind of feel stuck on the 3DS at this point. And granted, the 3DS
yeah.
huge install base, so many people played those
Gosh,
games.
yeah,
It's not the same as the Wii U where games
yeah.
that like kind of died there. But
Mm.
like it would be cool to see like even a Link Between Worlds somehow ported over to the
Yeah.
Switch. So we'll see
I
what
just give me
happens.
all the Zelda games, please.
Exactly. And then the final story of the day. This was a bit of a surprise for me. Microsoft Flight Simulator reviews are in. This is for the PC version. The Xbox version is not out yet, but it will be soon. The Metacritic currently is at 93.
Yeah, yeah.
IGN
I
gave it a 10.
yeah, I'm pleased to see this game has reviewed as well as it has because I have been so excited for this for a while. I was watching, I think it was Digital Foundry's technical coverage of it recently, where they were talking a lot about the way the game is streaming in high quality satellite data, so you can just go to literally anywhere in the world and the game will have high resolution detail for everything. I am such a big fan of like flight sims and planes, and it's hitting all of my nerdy buttons. It is everything I get excited about flying and flights. So I'm so glad it's gone over so well. Oh,
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised, honestly. IGN gave it a 10. My boy Seth Macy over there says Microsoft Flight Simulator is legitimately incredible. It's difficult to fully describe how amazing it feels to jump into a plane and have the freedom to fly to and from literally any place in the entire world. The base game's 20 included aircraft feel like more than enough for even hardcore aviation enthusiasts, and the ability to adjust the assist to tailor the experience to whatever skill level you desire make it suitable for anyone looking to fly the friendly skies from the comfort of their own home. The real world mapping data, however, takes Microsoft Flight Simulator from being just an impressive game to the most awe inspiring simulation I've ever experienced. It is mind bogglingly cool and an absolutely unparalleled way to virtually explore the world. I watched an
Mm.
IGN video of them flying
Yeah.
around San Francisco, and I was just like,
I-
"Oh my god,
Yeah,
the map
I
data is
watched.
insane."
Yeah, I watched this video review, and the thing that got me really excited was him talking about how he'd been a fighter pilot in the past, and talking about landing at real world airports and being like, "This is exactly the experience I had landing actual planes at this place," and like that level of detail is so exciting.
It's crazy. I wish it was like I mean for me, I'd want it to be a bit more arcadey. Like I want to see all the stuff, but it's like I'm a little scared about the simulation being
Just
too difficult.
turn it on to the easy mode where you just point it in a direction and it goes, and
But
just
that's the
enjoy a
thing.
nice flight
That's the
across
thing.
the country.
In this review, they're saying that it's like they can
Yeah.
tailor the assist to just make it a fun experience. I think that this is going to be a real cool game that is going to be another testament to being a pillar of Game Pass, where this isn't going to sell
Mm.
anybody on an Xbox or, you know, like buying this game necessarily. But it definitely just being an option. It's like, I might as well give this a shot. And like, I can see a lot of
Yeah.
people kind of falling in love with it, even if they didn't expect that they would.
Oh gosh, definitely. And I am ready for this to be my next few weeks of streaming, of just doing just nice, relaxing flights across the country. It
I
seems
love
so
it.
nice.
Especially because we can't fly right now. Kev, what's your hype level for this? Because I know you've been excited for this one.
I'm looking up flight sticks right now, Tim Tam. I'm going all around the world.
Oh my god, I love you, Kev. I love you so much. Kevin getting his flight stick is so far away. If I wanted to know what was coming to mom and grop shops today, where would I look, Laura?
You would look to the official list of upcoming software across each and every platform as listed by the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show hosts each and every weekday.
Kevin,
Is that about right?
you nailed it. You nailed it. But did Kevin do it? Kevin?
Well, here's the thing. It looks like it's going, but I can't hear it. Give me one more second.
Okay.
I think it's going.
Can they hear it?
I think so. There it is.
Wait, play it again. Play it from the top.
Okay. There we go.
Hold on. No. We need it clean. Okay?
Okay.
But that's so far away. If I want to know what's coming to mom and grop shops today, where would I look?
You would go to the official list of upcoming software across each and every platform as listed by the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show hosts each and every weekday.
Thank you very much to Dylan Fisher for making that jingle for me, because I refuse to do the jingle, but I'll play the jingle. I'll play it for you. And thank you, Kevin, for making that work. And thank you, Laura, for being a good sport. Out today, we got Secondoid on Switch. We got a Gangster Empire Vendetta on PC. We got 100 Vacas on PC, and we have Epic Battles of History on PC. No rap there, just Epic Battles.
No,
okay.
I misread it as Epic Rap Battles of History when I saw it on the list.
Exactly.
I don't know how you'd make that a video game, but I'd try it.
Yeah. Anyway, a new date for you, X Parasite from Greyhead Studio launches September 17th on Steam, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4. Deal of the day for you. Not so much a deal, just a PSA. The Lego NES is back in stock. If you want it, you can go to lego.com, check it out, and get it. I've seen so many of my friends buy this and build it on Twitter, and it looks awesome. Do you have any interest in this?
I have an interest in it. I don't think I can justify it at that price, but I keep looking enviously at it. I Google it every now and then and go, I could, and it'd be a very fun weekend, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta love Legos. Don't gotta love their price. Now it's time for some reader mail where you can write into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and get the show ad-free. And speaking of ads, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Between never-ending laundry cycles and incoming emails, you've got plenty on your to-do list. Give yourself one less thing to worry about and let DoorDash take care of your next meal. DoorDash is the app that brings you food you're craving right now, right to your door. Ordering is easy. Open the DoorDash app, choose what you want to eat, and your food will be left safely outside your door with the new contactless delivery drop-off setting. With over 300,000 partners in the US, Puerto Rico, Canada, and Australia, you can support your local go-tos or choose from your favorite national restaurants like Chipotle, Wendy's, or the Cheesecake Factory, and also Popeyes. Ladies and gentlemen, last week, I fell in love with Popeye's spicy chicken sandwich. It changed my life, and slowly it's been changing the lives of those around me. We did our Dunkirk in review viewing last night, and when Andy was coming over to watch, he's like, "We getting some Popeyes?" Next thing you know, I'm door dashing. They showed up. We're eating our spicy chicken sandwiches, and we're having a damn good time. Right now, you guys can get $5 off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when you download the DoorDash app and enter code GAMES. That's $5 off and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download DoorDash on the App Store and enter GAMES. Again, that's code GAMES for $5 off your first order when you get the DoorDash app. Thank you very, very much. Let's get to some reader mail here. The Sheep Whisperer says, "Good morning, Tim, and welcome, Laura. No matter how extensively they are tested, there are always risks when sending millions of product into the wild, e.g. the red ring of the 360 and the still prevalent Joy-Con drift. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being not very and 10 being very, how cautious should first adopters be with these new consoles come November-ish?"
In terms of controllers, I wouldn't worry about Microsoft at all. They're basically just iterating their old one. That's going to be fine. I mean, both of these consoles seems like they're really pushing tech as far as they can this time. So, I mean, they're taking precautions. The PS5 has vents like seemingly all the way around on
Thank
both sides. Like they seem like they're really, really trying hard to make these things work, but you never know until they launch. It is always unforeseeable.
Totally. And it's funny always looking at these console generations, because once we are at the end of them and look back, it's weird to think about how you felt about them when they first were there. When the Xbox One and PS4, the original versions came out, I remember just being like pretty in love with both of them. The Xbox One was a little bulkier than I might have wanted it to be, actually my main problem was the power brick that was associated with it, where it just seemed egregiously big. But I never really thought that like the PS4 had too many issues, like just how it looked. But then once we get up to like the Pro and stuff, I'm like, oh my God, I like this so much better. Like the original PS4 with the faceplate that kind of removed, it feels kind of cheap and janky.
Yeah, well, like this is always the case. You look at like the DS is the perfect example of
Oh
that.
my
That once
Lord.
the DS Lite happened, it's like, oh, it's night and day.
Totally.
Yeah. Obviously, I think we're in a world where we're gonna get revisions of these hardware. I think that was the problem in like the PS3 360 generation, is it was a lot rarer to redo consoles within a generation, and issues that were there at the start kind of just stayed the whole time. But
Or even then, if they made new versions, they were just slim. They were just smaller. You know, it wasn't so much like better in any other way. I guess that we did have the Xbox 360 Elite. But either way, looking at like these consoles, like when we switched from the Xbox One to the Xbox One S, it was like that S might as well have stood for sexy. Like that thing was awesome. And then when they announced the One X and they're like, it's the most powerful console, it's also the smallest. Like I'm looking at it right now. That thing is beautiful. It is just a sleek, beautiful black box. And it's crazy to even compare it to the original. But from the tech side of asking of like early adopters, there's gonna be problems. On the scale of 1 to 10, I would probably put it at a 6. Like there's gonna be some problems.
If there was ever going to be a year where there's going to be problems,
Oh,
it's this year, because this
totally.
year has so much stuff, I imagine, has had to be done remotely or has had to change workflow. If there's ever going to be a problem, it's going to be this gen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that'll be on both sides.
Yeah.
But I also think that, you know, specifically with the Xbox, they've been working on this for so long, and it's kind of just still in the Xbox One ecosystem in a way of everything kind of having to be baseline and work at least this good and stuff, that I feel like I'd be more concerned about the PS5, because it seems like the PS5's focus is on so many more like unique to them things.
I am really excited about the PS5, but you are totally right. Like that is the console that is trying to drastically change and do in like new things, and new things are where you break stuff.
Totally. It's exciting though, and we'll see. I wouldn't be scared. Like even that 6 out of 10, I feel like you could apply that to the previous generations too. And like, it's not a guarantee that like it's going to be something. It's not going to be red ring of death for sure, but there's going to be some minor annoyances, and we'll see. I'm interested to see this gen of when we get the new versions, of how many years it takes before there's a PS5 that doesn't look like a space station.
A PS5 that I can put flat on its side without needing a stand to do so.
Exactly. The other Sean writes in with a question, says, with the literally just happened announcement of a Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer mode and the rumblings of Rocksteady's Suicide Squad being a games as a service model, and of course Avengers right around the corner, I've got to ask, why are we continuing to see developers that in general have been lauded for single player story-based games jumping on the games as a service bandwagon? Ghost is more of an exception since it's a free add-in mode, but with games like Avengers and Suicide Squad, I have to wonder if the decision was made by the devs or the publishers. We've seen games that try to blend that narrative with looter mechanics and more, with none outside of Destiny basically coming up, with all the other ones coming up short. Anthem failed, Fallout 76 blundered, Division faded away. I hate to see talented studios get thrown under the bus trying to get in on the games as a service parade. Maybe I'm worrying for nothing, and it's probably more good than bad for devs to try out new styles of games, but I guess I'm just worried at what cost. Would love to hear your thoughts.
I mean, I don't think this is necessarily any different to any time that our industry has looked at a big trend and gone, yes, let's do our version of that. There's one game that's making all of the money doing this thing, we want to do it too. You saw it with every first-person shooter getting a battle royale mode. It's only natural for companies to go where the perceived money is, and some will get there and some will not, and you're never going to have them all be successful. I'm personally not a huge fan of the trend because I like my linear narrative games. I like having single player experiences that I like not having to worry that I might try and sit down in a morning and play a game and be like, nope, the servers are down for maintenance, you can't play today. I just like my linear games, but I think we're going to get more of before this ends. They're not going away anytime soon.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you, where I think that especially now we're about to get to this era of these games as a service games that are based on very, very popular mainstream IP, whether it's Batman or Avengers, it's like those are characters that people really care about. So it could be getting that style of game, the Destiny or the Fallout 76 or whatever, into the hands of a ton of gamers that aren't necessarily in the weeds of Division,
And I mean, the numbers don't lie. Games of service content in games gets people to play them for longer and to keep coming back to them, and I understand why that's appealing to developers. Because it's got to be disheartening to put years of your life into making something that after a weekend everyone's like, "Yep, we're done with it. All good."
And that's the part that really bums me out is, I obviously they're chasing the money here. And to an extent not to an extent, you understand that makes sense, but it is disheartening when you see some of these names and it's like, oh man, Crystal Dynamics, the people that made these Tomb Raider games that everyone loves, they're working on Avengers and it's games as a service. It's not what you expect or want from them.
Yeah. The big one that I keep looking at is Beyond Good and Evil 2, where I'm like, that's not what I want out of a sequel to that game, that it's this big procedurally generated open world online thing. No, just give me the thing that you made well the first time.
Totally. And that's the thing with Rocksteady, that I'm extremely excited to see what they show on Saturday when it comes to the Suicide Squad game, because man, just on paper, this sounds like not what the majority of people would want from them. First off, Suicide Squad. Second off, games as a service, like multiplayer stuff. It's like you'd imagine that they would want a more traditional single player narrative driven game for them because they've done that so well in the past. However, I do think that there is a chance that they can prove that, hey, what you want isn't the only thing that's good. And I would like leave it to a dev like Rocksteady to kind of be like, hey guys, you don't need to be worried about this because you can get a great experience out of it as well. But I don't know.
Yeah. Also, the last thing I'll note on this question is a lot of the examples that were brought up and like examples of ones that failed, like Anthem and Fallout 76. I imagine a lot of the ones we're seeing now, like this Avengers one and Suicide Squad, were in development before those games failed. And were on a track of like, this is going to be a games as a service before those failed. It's not like they've looked at the failures and gone, yeah, but we can beat the odds.
That's so true. And also looking at it, they're like Rocksteady. There are two devs that I look at in the last like half decade that I am just like, what have they been doing? Rocksteady and Retro. Like both of them top tier, high quality. There's expectations there that are like Naughty Dog levels. I mean, at least in the same conversation, right? And for them to have just been this quiet, this long, and then to hear so much like rumors and like maybe they're doing this, maybe they're doing Justice League, maybe they're doing Batman Beyond, maybe they're doing Superman, like all the stuff, and now for it to be Suicide Squad, especially with all the rumors that Suicide Squad was back in the day going to be the Montreal game. For it to be all of this coming to a head now, we're finally going to see, we know Retro's working on Metroid Prime 4. We'll see that eventually. And Rocksteady's about to blow out their game this weekend. It's all eyes on them, you know?
Yeah, agreed. If they've put this much time into it, expectations are high, it better be good.
Yeah, totally. Well, let's do some squatting up here, ladies and gentlemen. You can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames to squat up, send in your PSN name, your Xbox Live gamer tag, whatever it is, if you want to play with some best friends out there. Julian, the gluten-free gamer, says, I main on Xbox. However, I realized I play just as much on PlayStation. I grew up a PlayStation boy and realized I have no friends on PlayStation. I just want to see some people online so I don't feel lonely. Add me, gluten-free gamers on PSN. So that's gluten-free gamers with an S at the end of it. Julian, the gluten-free gamer, been a producer on many of our shows. So definitely show him some love. He needs some best friends out there to help him out. Now it's time for kindafunny.com/you're wrong. What did we get wrong here? Let me see.
Obviously nothing. We did perfect.
Yeah, no, actually we did pretty good.
Nice, that's good to hear.
This is literally just it's not so much you're wrong as much as it's some good editorializing here. Nanobiologist links to Imran's tweet saying, I'm curious, do people expect a Microsoft game in tomorrow's indie world? And that is a very Imran way of saying he might know something. And what that might be is potentially Ori, Will o' the Wisps.
If there's anything that would run on Switch that's Microsoft developed that wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world, Ori sequel would be cool.
Yeah, totally. So that'd be cool. I definitely enjoyed the hell out of Will o' the Wisps, and I think it would fit right at home on Switch if they get the tech side to work, because it had issues running on the Xbox One X. So, but it should be able to run on the Switch, and I think that they've probably solved that stuff by now.
The first Ori ran fine on Switch.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, this has been Kind of Funny Games Daily. Each and every weekday, we're live right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames, running you through all the stuff that you need to know about video games. We're about to do the Patreon post show, but before we get there, Laura, thank you very much for joining us. Where can people find you?
You can find me at Laura K Buzz pretty much anywhere that social media exists. Twitter, Twitch, I stream Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 10 p.m. UK, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm trying to hit partnered on there at the moment, so come hang out and do a watch along if you fancy. Patreon.com/LauraKBuzz, that's where most of my content goes. I have a bunch of podcasts. There's Podquisition, which is the video game podcast that I do with Jim Sterling. There is Dice Funk, which is a Dungeons and Dragons real play podcast that I do. Every season's a self-contained story. I'm on seasons 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And there's books, Uncomfortable Labels, Gender Euphoria, and the main one to pitch here, Things I Learned from Mario's Butt, which is coming out on February 4th, 2021, and has both Greg and Tim saying words about butts in it. So you should check it out. It's starting to show up on some of the places you can pre-order books, so...
Very cool stuff. Well, thank you. You've been so awesome for this. We're about to do the Patreon exclusive post show, so stay tuned for that. But until next time, Game Daily.